Welcome everyone to today's virtual discussion on a critically important topic, another year of entrance exams in Afghanistan without women. We are honored to have two distinguished speakers with us, Nadia Hashimi, an international best-selling author, known for her compelling novels that highlight the struggles and triumphs of Afghan women, and program manager for Sahar Education, Shogofa Amini. We both work for Sahar. My name is Ali Renar. I am the Operations and Finance Manager of Sahar. And if you don't know anything about the organization, we are working to provide educational opportunities to women in Afghanistan, despite the current situation and bans on education. As many of you do know, the ongoing gender apartheid in Afghanistan continues to have profound impacts on women and girls. And this not only deprives them of their fundamental rights to education, but also affects the fabric of society as a whole. Today, we will delve into the ramifications of this exclusion and explore ways to support and advocate for the rights of Afghan women and girls. First, before we hop into the conversation, we'll just give you a brief bit of information about Sahar. Sahar has been working in Afghanistan since 2001. Prior to the Taliban, they were building schools, mainly in the Mazar Sharif location. Now, Sahar is continuing to educate and empower young women through clandestine education. Programs include women's empowerment, comprehensive health workshops, and skill building in both Kabul and Mazar Sharif, and are all in person at this time. Our mission is to partner with locally based grassroots organizations and to create educational opportunities and safe learning spaces for girls and women in Afghanistan, empowering and inspiring children and their families to build peaceful, thriving communities. And this is a bit about our impact. So over 250,000 students have been reached through Sahar's programs over the years. These are some of our recent graduates in different programs. And I will take a moment to mention that the reason that their faces are blurred is because the majority of what we do in Afghanistan is illegal at this time. So the participants in our programs must be kept safe. And so for that, we do not share their faces with the public. And I just want to start with the first question. So for Nadia, your novels often depict the resilience of Afghan women. How does the current situation compare to the historical struggles that you've written about?
Well, Ali, thanks for that intro. And I'm glad that in that intro you did mention specifically the term gender apartheid, because, that's the situation that Afghan women and girls and Afghan families are living through right now. And that's a term that, there is a movement now among jurists and international humanitarian and human rights organizations like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and the UN Special Rapporteur to Afghanistan as well, have all asked that the term gender apartheid be codified into international law so that there will be some accountability, some ways to actually officially declare that what they're living through right now is wrong. For me, I've written stories, and one of my stories, people would ask me, what is the story about, or when is it set? And I would describe it as it was set in around 2006, and I would always describe it, oh, it's set in post-Taliban Afghanistan. And that's how I would frame the timeline of it, of this is an after. And I could not imagine that we would be returning to see again this very dystopian world that Afghan women and girls have to live through, with rules and edicts that restrict their movements through the country, requiring them to travel with a male guardian as a chaperone. And how dehumanizing that can be when, a woman may need her son, a young boy, to actually qualify as her male chaperone, and without a child or a male, she cannot move about and cannot be mobile within her own country, and including things like not being allowed to walk through gardens, not being allowed to play sports, and of course, the ban on girls' education beyond the sixth grade, which is completely egregious, and, limitations on women's ability to work as well. So, when I write these stories, those were the elements from the Taliban period that I had incorporated into different novels to give people some context. And here we are again. The thing that is worse right now, comparing it to the Taliban regime of the late 90s, is that right now, what's happening to Afghan women and girls is happening with the world's full awareness. And that awareness means that we're condoning it too. And you can see, for example, right now, the United Nations has special envoys that are meeting with the Taliban in Doha for this third round of talks. And per the requests of the Taliban, there are no women involved in this meeting. And women's rights and human rights are not on the agenda. They will not be discussed. At a time when this is the biggest crisis of the country, right? So what's happening right now is happening in full view of the world, and we're sort of just condoning it and letting it be. Number two is that the world suffers from Afghanistan fatigue. United States especially, but globally we're suffering from fatigue about what's been happening in Afghanistan, and with attentions rightfully being pulled in different directions in the international community because there are crises going on in many corners of the world, and then everyone also has, their own personal lives to attend to. And the third is that the public has been sold a narrative that misogyny and oppression are somehow Afghan values, and that women's empowerment and the desire for education is a foreign concept that was introduced into the country. When my mother, who was a generation before me, had gone to school, went to Kabul University and became an engineer. So that's just not true, but it was a very easy sell. So, and that's why narrative is so very important. That's what I try to do, is provide historical context in narratives and break through some stereotypes. One important one being that Afghan fathers want their girls to go to school too. And they may not be able to mobilize to make that happen right now in the face of an Afghan with this Taliban regime. But that also is important to me, is making sure that we go beyond the stereotypes and expand the narrative.
Thank you for that. I think that's really important, and I definitely agree on all counts there. Something I heard today, which I just found really awful, was that one of the leaders in China had said that they didn't want to interfere with Afghan values. And when they're talking about Afghan values, they're talking about the edicts of the Taliban, right? Which is the narrative that the Taliban wants. That's why no women are going to the Doha meeting, right? Because they want to push that narrative. They want you all to believe it. They want us all to believe it. And that way we all just shut up about it, right? So definitely
Yeah, it's
agree.
amazing how many countries and entities are willing to meddle in Afghanistan's economic affairs and organize trade meetings and talk about commerce. But when it comes to women's rights, oh, we don't want to meddle.
Yeah, because it's your values, but it's not, right? We all know that. We all know that before women had rights in America, women in Afghanistan had rights. And so it's like rewriting of history, right? So definitely agreed. Um, to that point, what role do you think that literature and storytelling play in raising awareness and generating support for women's rights in Afghanistan?
So, building on what I said earlier is going beyond the stereotypes, right? We want to talk about feminist fathers, like my father, like my grandfather, like so many other Afghan fathers that I've known. But also, the simple things sometimes, like that the youth of Afghanistan are also romantic. They're very romantic, right? And that's something that people might not think about. But the way the restrictions of the Taliban have been crafted, it wants to stymie all of that too. It wants to stymie the arts, the culture, the music, the colors of the clothing, all of that, which might seem like these are frivolous, but they're really not. They're really a suffocation. And so, again, this is what storytelling can do, is to make sure that all of that is represented as part of Afghanistan's story, because one of the things that people need to understand is when you take away all of that, you understand the depth of loss that people are experiencing in Afghanistan. If you think that Afghanistan is a country that has no culture, that doesn't like music, that is very severe, very strict, then you think well, okay, this is not so bad. So you just don't have girls going to school, big deal. But if you understand that Afghan culture is vibrant, is romantic, is expressive, is really where families want to flourish with one another, then you understand that what's happening to them when you've taken away the dreams of girls, then you understand how devastating that can be. The other thing is to provide historical context because what I learned is that there were a lot of people who didn't know Afghanistan's history and really felt like the conflict that happened and the years of conflict that happened in Afghanistan just started with the Soviet invasion of the 1980. But that's not really true, right? 1979. There's more to it. And I think one of the important things for me was to also provide historical context for the United States' role back in Afghanistan in the years preceding the Soviet invasion, because Afghanistan was really used as a proxy territory for the Cold War to play out, and that destabilized the country. And so if we just think that Afghanistan is inherently a country of conflict, they're constantly fighting wars, that's just what those people do, that takes away from the value of the lives in the country. And of course, recentering Afghan women, because that is the point, right? Is that women should be at the center of telling their own stories. And so I try to write these stories where Afghan women are at the center so that they can express what they're feeling. I'm not trying to speak for Afghan women, but just recentering them so that they're not the just the topic of conversation, but they are the agents of the conversation. They're the ones guiding the story. They're the figures who are saying, this is what I'm going to do next. This is what I'm going to do now. And this is why I'm doing it. This is my motivation. These are my desires. This is my humanity in full display. So those are the ways that I think storytelling can really, and I've seen it happen actually with readers and getting to know people, is that it really expands and humanizes the Afghan lives.
Yeah, I think that's very, very true. And I like the idea that, you know, we can see the women centered in the story, but they're not being victimized, right? Like they're strong, they're agents of their own making and their circumstances, but they're doing whatever they can, right? And so that's really important because I think that many people feel like women in Afghanistan are oppressed and they've been oppressed forever, right? And that's not true. And the reality is that they want to return to this world where they could wear their traditional clothes and dance traditional dances and be free, right? So thank you very much for that. So the next question is for Shogofa. Can you share the challenges that Sahar education faces in providing educational opportunities to girls in Afghanistan under the current regime?
Sure. Thank you so much, Ellie, for the questions. Yes, it's I mean, Sahara has been, as you mentioned earlier in the PowerPoint, that like Sahara has been in Afghanistan since 2021 and impacted a lot of girls' life and changed lives, building schools, repairing schools, and providing educational programs for girls. Like it until the Taliban came, Sahar was like moving forward and changing lives. And when the Taliban came for the second time, it was devastating for a lot of organizations that were working in Afghanistan, and Sahar was one of them. And not only that, because a lot of organizations like they withdraw and they left Afghanistan, and Sahar stayed there and supported girls' education. Of course, it was not easy to Sahar to start all over and starting from the scratch. And we lost our partners, we lost our being in touch with our students, but it was important for us to stay there and support girls' education. And this time, how we started was just like supporting grassroots organization that the local organization that were working in Afghanistan, because the last 20 years invested education, and then the youth have been very invested in education. They were working so hard and they did not sit back, and they were local organization. They were actively working. Our women's rights activists were working. So we were able to contact with them and restarted connecting with partners on the ground. And some private schools that they were open like to students from 1st grade to 6th grades, and then some organizations were active, and we connected with them. And there were some challenges definitely comes with especially like we started we wanted to work with the government, but there was a very challenging like, and then we had to as like sad it is to see that the schools closed again. And for me personally was is repeating history again. Like I have lived through this era of Taliban once, and I have seen that how it feels to not able to go to school, how it feels to be stay at home, and emotionally it was impacting for me, and I could feel that each individual students how it's challenging for them not able to go to school. And since we saw that the student cannot come to school, and we take the school to them, and that's where we started programs like underground schooling, like and we call them underground tech sheroes. And the other programs, we started partnering with the private schools. Like definitely it comes with the challenges, and it reminds me my own time, because like how I went to school secretly, hiding my books under my burqa, and like with a lot of fear, and but still like how much my book and pens was so dear to me that I take that risk to go to school. And I could see these students that we Sahar students, they are taking the same risk to come to school. And this is our responsibility, how we have to safely manage that, to educate them and then provide them educational places. Earlier this year, like Taliban started like searching for the private schools, and any organization are open, and trying to close that opportunity. Was some organization or schools are open to provide education for girls. So one of our programs were affected by that as well. Like our program, we had one partners private schools in Mazar Sharif, we were working with them, that Taliban got suspicious. And then we had to pause that for a security reason. And then we didn't want to, the whole school get in the risk just because of our program. And but still we continue with that challenges and the risk. And what is more important is like how these young people are hunger for education, and they want to take a risk, and they want to come to learn education and make a differences. And these generations are so different than generation in my time, because in our time was different. Everything was shut down and there was no opportunity, and we had to stay quiet. But what I see for these young people are there has so much potential for them, and then so much talent that they want to take the risk and come. And it is not easy, but it's not impossible. What Sahar has been doing and making a difference each individual's life.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Can you tell us what successes have you seen in your programs despite these challenges, and what really keeps you hopeful?
Thank you. Yes, like earlier we say, Nadia mentioned that how Afghanistan's history has lost in war. Like, you know, we have a very rich history. We are not what is presented in the news or in social media, how it is our narrative has been presented. My mother's generation, like Nadia was saying, that it was different than how university was open, how like men and women work together as ally. So it was different, but like now we have to this young generation that we have right now, and we have to educate them and repolish our history and represent our history again to the world. And I could see this in our students. And I have, since the Taliban came and we started our program, and I have seen that like these girls are from underground tech sheroes. We have like early marriages program, like women empowerment. These students, when come, they tell their stories. There's so much power and so much inspiration and motivation they have to change their community. When we provide these programs, like each student comes with a lot of hope and a lot of they have dreams. Like I myself interviewed them and listened their stories. There was so much. It makes me sad at the same time, but at the same time, I was like, there is a hope with these challenges, with despite of like the risk they're taking, despite of like there's nothing available for them. They're willing to make a difference. They're willing to learn. For example, one of the students in our underground tech sheroes, she comes and says that I feel like I've been in the darkness since the Taliban came. And when they take away my pen and book, and I feel there is no hope for me. And I did not see any future for myself until the Sahars opened the program for me. And I feel like I see the light. And that's where I become more hopeful in the future. And I see future, and I become more hopeful to do something in my life. So this kind of story, this is one of the stories that I have shared. There's so many stories we have, like the girls, like they have like Nadia mentioned, like how they are romanticized, like they write their beautiful writing poetry, and they write their stories in Dari is so rich. Like recently one of our students write in Farsi, like two pages of paragraph, and she writes her story, how she feels right now under the current government, and how her hopes and dreams are taken away from her, and what she can do in the future. And these stories, when I hear how much these girls like hope for the future and what we can do it, that keeps me going and do something for these girls to have a future. And like we said, like these are the generation for the future of the country. With this program, especially in our program, Women Empowerment, they are learning about leadership. They are learning about being empowered and build their confidence. And what is happening was these girls are coming together in a small community and sharing their feelings, sharing their thoughts. And then they're creating a small project for themselves. For example, they were saying that once we graduate from this program, we would like to contribute back to their community and go from like further in our villages and help other women. And because that's how we can build in our community, because that is a part of our curriculum, like community building, community engagement. And then they become like finding their community, finding their each other to share. In despite of the challenges, they're like pushing it back, they're not giving up. So when I hear the stories, when I see them so hopeful, that keeps me going. And Sahar is there to support them.
Thank you for that. I think I think the stories really also touched me as well. Recently, a quick anecdote, we shared a essay contest with the students in the underground tech sheroes, and a lot of them actually wrote essays and submitted them, and they CC'd us on their submissions so that we could see them, and their stories were all really just raw and brave, and every one of them has a different voice and different things they want to say, but at the heart of it, they all have hope. And the reason they have hope is because there's somewhere they can go where they can look in someone else's eyes and see that they're not struggling alone.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the support of their teachers and the community that they're building there. So thank you for working with them and making that possible, of course.
I just want to add one more thing about like the program, the other program we have, Man as a Partner in Change, like educating younger men, which is very important in this time, because working with men and making them ally and supporting a woman's education and understanding how it is important, not like I know like it's always stereotype that woman, when you say women's right in Afghanistan, it always comes to like it's a Western idea, or that is we're trying to break the stereotype and try to talk to the with men that like how it feels like, you know, what is your right as a man, how it feels like if you're not able to go to school, what's your role in the family, educating this young men as making it a big difference as well. And also like our students also shares that like their fathers also as a big ally for them, for their daughters, for their wives. And a lot of like in the news or in the social media, you see always portrayed like man as a violent and the woman as a victim in Afghanistan. There's two images that you see in Western, but it's not often true, because like Nadia mentioned, like there's a lot of fathers and brothers are there supporting their like his daughters. Like for example, myself, like my brothers were big supporter for myself. I wouldn't be here without my brother's help. Like I wouldn't be here without my father's support. Actually, he's the one who encouraged me to go and take a big step to travel all the way in the US. And among our students, I see a lot of, they come and share like, my father allowed me to come to this course. My brother allowed me to come to this course, especially in the current regime. So we should not see that like men are bad and women are victim in Afghanistan, because women are resilient. Afghan women, especially in Afghanistan right now, very strong, and they are not giving up. So that gives us hope to keep going.
Thank you. Yes, that's very true. Agreed. So the next one, I have a question, and it's for either one of you, whoever wants to answer. How do you think the exclusion of women from entrance exams and higher education are affecting Afghanistan as a whole?
I'll start off then to build on what Shun was just talking about. So, when we see that Afghan girls and women are excluded from education, I always start to look at it like from the smallest to the greatest impact, right? And I think the smallest is the most granular, is to look at the impact on the individual. I remember when the Taliban came into power in 2021, one of the messages that I got through social media was from a young woman in Afghanistan, who was writing to me kind of out of the blue without any, context that we had for each other, but just reaching out to tell me that she felt very afraid. And then once the schools were completely banned, because initially they still could go to the university, which made no sense if you're closing the younger grades down and you're allowing education at the undergraduate level. It made no sense. But when that was taken away too, she wrote me again and said, I feel like I'm being buried alive. And so it's really important for us to be aware. And there's been, it's hard to get numbers on this, but there is documentation that the rates of mental health crises, of anxiety, of depression, of feelings of hopelessness, that there's been a surge in suicidal behavior in young women because they're not seeing a future for themselves. So the impact on the individual is tremendous. And then there's the impact that's on the family unit. When you have a girl who does not have a future in education, you're going to see, and we'll see, an increase in child marriage, right? Which is like sanctioned sexual abuse of a child. And then you expand beyond that, and what happens to that child, what happens to that girl in the future is that she will have children. There will be higher maternal mortality rates. There will be higher infant mortality rates. There will be more poverty. There will be children that she has who will be less educated as well, because that level of education is going to perpetuate. A more educated mother provides more educated children, produces more educated children. And then, of course, there's the community level where we're looking at, individual families who are thriving because they have all of their individual pieces of the family working together and coordinating and enabled and empowered to reach their maximum potential, that's good for the community. And that's what communities need. Because imagine, I'm thinking in my own family, if both of us cannot work, we're going to have a problem, right? We need everybody on board. And what the Taliban's regime has done right now is essentially kneecapped half the population, which does not affect only the women and girls, but it affects everyone. And we have to know also at the same time that what kind of education are the boys getting? When these girls have their brothers going to school, in schools that are run by the Taliban, where they're creating curriculums, a group of people who are uneducated themselves have created a curriculum where their primary concern is the perpetuation of this regime and of their ideology of extremism. What do we think they're learning in those schools? And so that's going to impact the country as a whole. But that impact, you cannot have a country of extremism and expect that that's going to stay locked in within those borders. So with time and eventually we will see this impact have some more regional influence, if not global. But it's going to start small. We may not see it. It will take some time, but it will be there.
Thank you. I definitely agree with that. Shogofa, do you have anything you'd like to add there?
Sure, like as Nadia mentioned, like it will impact socially a lot, and child marriages, and also violence is increasing. Domestic violence is increasing, and there is not like specific numbers. Like what I hear from my students, a lot that is because of like lack of education, lack of like access to mental health, lack of the access healthcare is increasing so much. And not to mention like last 20 years, like this young generation invested so much their education, especially the girls, like being a doctor, being a journalist. All these girls, like I interviewed them, they're from 7th grade till 12th grade. Like all these students have a plan in their future to be a doctor, to be a nurse, to be a journalist, to be an engineer, to be a lawyer. Like all this talent is that is going to be go for nothing, we're waste, and they're staying at home. And every day they're waiting, what is going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And then what is happening is like their family are making decision for them to get married. And that's where they're bury their hopes and dreams. And that will be their end of the, and that will affect the country's economy. Right now, like 23.7 million people are needs for humanitarian need in Afghanistan. And imagine like what's going to happen in 2-3 years from now.
I definitely agree with that. That actually touches on the next question I was going to ask was, what do we think the long-term economic and social implications of denying education to half the population would be? I think you started right there, right? I mean, half the population, right? Do we think there will be even more far-reaching implications as well?
I mean, just to say that we're going to have a continued independency. Afghanistan has, and that's been problematic even in the last 20 plus years, is that Afghanistan was so incredibly dependent on aid from other countries, right? But ideally, once you start empowering and you're creating different networks of commerce and trade and you have everybody involved, then you can start to build your way out of that. And it's a long, slow process. Nobody should have expected results overnight. And there were a lot of problems in the past 20 years that cannot be, denied or whitewashed. But at the same time, I think the trajectory was a better one. We needed more accountability and oversight. What are we going to have now? Well, we can see that you have a government that's clearly not able to provide for the people that it's supposed to be governing right now. And so what they've been able to do for the people really is just to provide more restrictions. What they've been able to do is just say, you guys can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do, all of these things without really enabling or empowering or building on anything. They keep throwing around this, we've increased security in the country, we've improved security in the country. Well, how have you done that? You did that by taking control of the country, because the conflict was between the government of Afghanistan and these insurgents. So now the insurgents have taken over and ousted the government. So of course security is better because we don't have that conflict happening right now. But that absence of conflict, the absence of gunfire, and the decrease in bombings should not be misinterpreted as peace. This is not peace when half the population is oppressed violently. As you can see, what happens to women who are brave enough to stand up and protest in the streets. So many have been detained, and God knows what kind of abuses have happened to them behind closed doors. But again, we have these Taliban who are not able to provide. And so, they keep kind of throwing around these promises of, we'll allow women to get back to work when, and we will allow girls to go back to school when we can guarantee that it is safe and appropriate settings for them. Well, if you haven't been able to do that in this much time, the likelihood of them doing that is close to nil. There's no desire for them to do it. And so you're going to continue to see that this country becomes more and more dependent on foreign aid, which, if it comes in, maybe it'll help some people, but we're having to do things like this with Sahar to save small pockets of individuals and kind of sustain them until the time where there will be a turnover or some major shift in the government of the country. Because until that happens, we're going to have to keep filling in. And Sahar's not able to address the needs of the entire nation, unfortunately. But everyone that we're affecting is worth it, right? When you change one life, that's an entire existence. And so each one is valuable. But we're a bit of a Band-Aid, but a really, really important Band-Aid for the people we're reaching.
Yes, thank you so much for that. And I think to that point, the next question is important. What do we think the international community can do to support Afghan women and girls in their fight for education and equal rights? What are the next steps? What do we all need to be calling for?
So just I'll throw it again there. There's the End Gender Apartheid movement. So if anybody is interested, one easy way, social media is an easy way to sort of get involved and just to be kept updated, on what's happening. So, look for the hashtag End Gender Apartheid, follow and reshare on the accounts that you find who are promoting this. And this is a movement of Iran and Iranian and Afghan women who are really pushing this forward. But again, with the co-signers of, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and so many other dignitaries, and including, Nobel Prize winners, individuals like Heather Barr from Human Rights Watch on X or on other social media platforms. Follow, Afghan women. If you see that there are Afghan women, there were so many Afghan women in high governmental positions and high positions of significance in Afghanistan. Look for those women, like, for example, Dr. Habiba Sarabi, who has just declined the invitation to these, afterthought talks that were added onto the Doha 3, where they said, okay, well, you can't come to the talks with the Taliban themselves and the special envoys, but we're going to create another day of talks on the so June 30th and July 1st will be with the Taliban, but you women can come on July 2nd when the Taliban won't be there, but we'll talk to you, which is, showmanship and performance and not really meaningful. So follow someone like Dr. Habiba Sarabi, who issued a statement in declining that invitation and gave reasons for why she did that.
Yeah, I think those are all really great points, especially with the move to basically legitimize the Taliban by allowing them to dictate the terms of the Doha meeting and excluding women and excluding even a conversation about women's rights, right? I mean, how can we talk to the Taliban about poverty and famine and anything else if we don't talk about women's rights? It doesn't even make sense, right? Shogofa, do you have any other things that you think you want to add into what the international community should be doing?
Definitely, each individual has a responsibility, especially women's rights is not only in Afghanistan, it's like, oh, it's Afghan women, that's their rights. It generally impacts like all over women's rights globally. So we must individuals do our responsibility, reach out, women's rights activists, women's Nadia John mentioned, like gender apartheid, we have to be participate and also like really reach out the Congress and then governors, like putting on the pressure mostly that how we can just this is not, we should not be normalized. This is okay in Afghanistan in 21st century that women in Afghanistan is the first country in the world that women are not allowed to go to school. That is like insane. And if we think about it, like how it is accepted, and we have to push more pressure and reach out individuals and support who are like organizations and not stay quiet and not let that happen more longer.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction. Afghanistan is the first country in the world where women and girls cannot get an education, because if it is allowed, this gender apartheid can spread, right? Extremism spreads if they get away with it. And so there does have to be the realization that this won't stop here. So the next question is, how can individuals, aside from following accounts and resharing, is there anything that they can do to contribute and raise awareness and support initiatives, specific initiatives like the ones of Sahar Education or other organizations working to make real change?
Well, I will say, I think we have someone in the audience here
Yes.
who's joined the conversation who could probably give us a master class on that. Shika I'm going to call you out, Shika, who's in Hong Kong, has been doing just amazing things on a very individual basis. And, she has used her talents, used her arts in order to raise funds and then donate to specific projects and connect with, communities in Afghanistan and provide things like sewing machines and basic necessities. And she is an individual, although she does the work of a team, it seems. And I don't know if
Yeah.
you want to give her a chance to add to that, but Shika's been just a complete inspiration to watch how she's worked some real magic.
Shika says she didn't want to show her early morning face. I definitely agree, and I would welcome your comments on how you feel that individuals can make a big difference, because I do agree. Since you started engaging with Sahar, I know that you've personally sponsored multiple women and girls within our programs. So, what is your opinion?
I think community involvement, and again, I do apologize, I woke up a few minutes before this meeting, but community involvement, just speaking to women within my community, raising awareness. One of the reasons I've joined this is because I get asked a lot of questions. I want to be able to answer them, which is why I'm a bit of a social media stalker. Nadia knows about that. But yeah, just having all the information and being persistent. I think that's with any cause that you're passionate about, just being persistent with it, like annoyingly so. So.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I mean, we have to feel also like we're being annoyingly persistent sometimes. So you're not wrong.
It's worth it. It's worth it. I think social media can be used for so much good. I mean, that's been my experience from day one. People use it for all kinds of, silly to ridiculous things, actually. But it's a very powerful tool if you can form that community online. And I mean, I have no idea, and I know, I mean, I haven't told Nadia this, but I genuinely have no idea how I've managed what I have in the last 3 years, because it's just been taking it one day at a time, speaking as much as I can, trying to involve as many people as I can. And people are passionate. I mean, I've had over 50, 60 local businesses, all women-run businesses, from mothers making things at home to slightly bigger businesses who have been involved. And it's just about somebody, I think, everybody's wanted to help, but they needed somebody to just guide and do the homework and do the research. And I mean, and that's been my priority, honestly, is to build these relationships in the last 3 years, because I want to have every answer to every question that I'm asked. Because when it comes to places like Afghanistan, and I will say even for a couple of fundraisers I've done for Gaza, you have to be able to answer the questions that are asked, because they're not easy questions. People want to know where their money is going. So yeah, which is why, I've had a talk with Shogofa as well earlier, because you have to get to know who's involved, what they're doing, how they're doing, what they're doing. So, but I've seen that if you can do the homework for everyone, they're very willing to join in and contribute. If you can make the process easy, that does mean I sleep a little less, but it's so worth it. So, and I will go and say that you're absolutely right where you say that this poison will not stay within the borders of Afghanistan. It won't. It will be used as an excuse. I'm from India. It'll be used as an excuse anywhere. And that's something we don't want to see happening for sure. So.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I think those are all really good tips for anyone here or watching later who wants to get involved. Feel free to ask us the questions if you don't have the answers already, because Shogofa and I are always happy to answer. And before we have a few audience engagement questions, things we would like to ask you guys, but I do see there's some comments and questions here in the comment bar, so I think we can answer those now. So the first one is from Zulika, and it says, thanks for whatever you're doing. I was wondering to know how Sahar can reach to other provinces, especially Badakhshan. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's a great question. Shogofa, do you want to reply to that?
Sure, yeah. Sahar, before the Taliban, Sahar was only working in one region, and since Sahar is a small nonprofit in Mazar Sharif, not part of Afghanistan. But after that Taliban, we expand our programs in Kabul as well. But for now, like since we're a small nonprofit, we're only working in Mazar and Kabul, but definitely if any programs we find, like since we are supporting grassroots organizations, like if we find any organization working in Badakhshan and supporting girls education, and we will definitely work with them. And for now, like we only working with 2 provinces, and our future plans are like trying to do more online classes, and if any organization are active in Badakhshan and if they reach out to us, definitely we will be working with them as well.
Yeah, we're happy to entertain proposals. If you know of a secret school in your region that would be interested in sending a proposal, we will definitely entertain it and see if we can help out. And as Shogofa did mention, we are in the process of kind of testing how we could do online courses, which then could be available all over the country. So we're hoping that will be something maybe for 2025, because we don't see the Taliban stopping this anytime soon, unfortunately. So the next one says, this was from Shika, and it was, what kind of opportunities are available for women who complete the courses? If local jobs are not available, are there any online opportunities available or chances of going outside the country? Going back to what kind of future girls can imagine for themselves after receiving the education? I think that's a great question, and we hear variations often. Shogofa, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, definitely. Our programs, I will start from our IT programs, coding and website designing. The girls who are in this course, they are learning that coding, computer and web designing. Some of the students who are graduating for this course, like 6 months, right after that, they are registering for university. And some of them, like starting, there are some private schools are open. They are hired as a teacher, computer teacher. Some they are like opening their own small schools at home. So, and they that's like once they graduate, they are coming back to us like, what is next for us? Like what we can do next. So that's a question a lot of students, like I said, like we have a lot of talented students. They want to do study abroad, like, ask us questions like, is there any applications that we can apply for universities? So that's like, we are planning for in the future, that how can we bring all the students who graduated for the future, like, are they gonna apply for universities or jobs? For now, like there is no job in Afghanistan that they can work, even they have the skills. Like our trainers are like very talented, and the only job they have is like they're working with Sahar. But Right now, when they learn for website designing and coding, they're applying for courses online, or like some schools are available, like in private schools, to teach them to be a teacher.
Yeah. And I think another thing to be aware of also is that this is something that we're currently addressing. So Shogofa has been working with the organizations that are putting on these programs. We're trying to develop a more comprehensive curriculum that will give things like, you know, how to make a portfolio so then they could do online work, right? How to interview and apply for those types of things, because we want to give more support going forward, since we don't think that this is short term, right? And we also are looking for, and we've been investigating opportunities for other college programs besides the ones that we've already referred girls to. So we're always looking for those opportunities, trying to find where we can, you know, get these girls into next. What's the next opportunity? And then what about for the women in like the Threads of Hope? Do you want to talk to that a bit?
Yes, sure. So Threads of Hope, we graduated 40 students, 40 women that age of above 25. They in the schools, they learned sewing classes, sewing, and then literacy, like the basic reading and writing. When they graduated, and during the 6 months, they have learned like how to make clothes. Some of the students during that, when they were in school, in a program, they were starting having contract with the shops, like, you know, to make a clothes and sell. And some of the students starting their own business at home, like making clothes and selling in their communities, because like, as you may be aware, Afghanistan is there's no opportunity or like online shopping or like big malls to get their clothes ready. So they're starting this like small home businesses for themselves in the community. And then, believe it or not, they were like life-changing for them, this 40 women who came in our program. And they were so happy that like this is something that they can do at home, and then they find their communities and they can do for their families, for their family members and their communities. So, and then because at the end of the project, we gave the machines to them. So that was something that they can start up their small businesses.
Yes, great. So then we have another question here. It says, how can we have the target audience benefit from these programs? Is there an application process and timeline? I can reply to that because I'm the one who controls it. So basically, most of the people in our programs are actually recruited from the organizations that we work with. So they go out into the community. They look for women who could benefit from this, right? Students that they know from previous school, things like that. However, there are also people who are contacting us who are interested in joining our programs. If you're one of those people, or if you know someone who is one of those people, you can apply on our website. So right on our website, under our programs header, you can see where it says looking for help. And if you click on looking for help, you can actually fill out an online form. If someone you know isn't able to do it, you can do it for them. And when you fill out that form, we will then reply. And if you are a good fit for any of our existing programs, we would then connect you with the organization that is putting on the program so you can enroll. It does not cost anything for these girls and women to enroll in the programs. We cover that entirely. So all you need to do is be a good fit and be in the right location. But if you're not, then we will let you know. And we will keep the information so that when we have future programs that might fit you, we would then reach out. So as an example, if you're just not in the right area, then if we get an online program going, or we work with another organization in that area in the future, then we would reach out to you to enroll you in the program. So there are opportunities to do that. And we have, may I have contact to stay in touch and seek on the NGOs? Oh, yes. You can email us at info@sahareducation.org. That's also available on our website. Feel free to email us if you have any questions, or if you want to volunteer or anything like that. We have a little bit about that at the end. So then we had some questions. We wanted to see if the community here has any experiences or answers for. So our first question was, how has the exclusion of women from education in Afghanistan personally impacted you or someone you know? Has anyone here who joined the call today, do they know anyone who's impacted by the education bans in Afghanistan? And we would love even like a little raise of hands or a message in the chat. Do you know?
Well, I know her because she was the first person that I did my fundraisers from. The second person, actually, she's now 23, and she was a former law student, and I got to know her also through another author, actually, a British author. And she had to leave her education, of course, midway, and she was sending me her transcripts. She was a topper in a university. But she, along with her father, and going back again on, the stories you hear about Afghan men and stuff, but she, along with her brothers and her father, have started a non-profit, which is not registered because it's too much of a hassle for her. But they have been doing incredible work for the last 3 years. And she was 21, I think, when she started that. So, and her thing has been very simple, that I cannot sit and just not do anything. So I didn't know her before all of this, but I got to know her pretty quickly after the takeover. Yeah.
That's great. And Azizi, I know you had your hand up.
Sure, thank you. First of all, thank you for this wonderful session. I'm an Afghan woman. It's pretty informative for anyone who wants to know about this whole. It's a tragic, it's a tragic event after event, if we put it that way. But to your question, if I know anyone, a lot of girls. In my extended family, my cousins, some of them were going to universities, second year, third year, some of them fourth year, they would have been done with their education at that point. And some of them, unfortunately, when they took the last entrance exam available for girls, they got into medical school, and they were super excited to go ahead and get started with it. And all of a sudden that ban was put over there. And just about 3 weeks ago, I believe it was around 3 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, I was talking to her just to check on her, and the hope that she had, at least that first year and then second year, you could see that she was very devastated and very hopeless at this point of what's happening and what will the future look like for her and hundreds of thousands of girls that are in Afghanistan. Half of the population, if let's say not all of them go to school, to consider elderly women and all of them excluded, it's a huge number over there. Yeah, it's devastating.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, it's very similar to the other stories that we've heard, of course, and girls and women that we've worked with, and it is devastating. So thank you. Zulika, do you want to share who you know or your connection?
Oh, yeah. First of all, thank you so much for hosting the program and sharing what you are doing at Sahar Education. It's my first time hearing Sahar Education. Actually, I am voluntarily working at Generation of Change, and my task is to find out the list of online schools, free courses, and generous universities who give the scholarship or financial aid for Afghan students, specifically girls. I was working on that, and I find Sahar Education through a Google search. And I saw there is the program, and I applied for and registered for this program. First of all, thank you so much for whatever you are doing. I know it in this situation, it is very meaningful. Second of all, I would say regarding your question that it's not only anyone who I know, it is about the half of the population of the country has been directly impacted by this ban of the education, by the regime, by the current regime. And personally, I came from a very big family. I have 9 other siblings. I'm the oldest one. We are all 12. And I'm the only one who, I would say, who survived the regime and who escaped the country and came to the United States. But I do have 9 other siblings that they are currently living under the Taliban regime, and my 4 sisters have been banned from the university and from the school. I have one sister. She was doing her bachelor at the sociology department at Badakhshan University, and now she is home. I have one of my other sisters that she was at 8th grade at school, at elementary school, and she is now home. And currently, it has been 6 months. She is experiencing a very chronic mental health issue. And I knew for sure that this is because of having an unknown and uncertain future and destiny. Like all of my siblings are as smart as they can think of their future. When my sisters think that, okay, what will happen in the 5 years, she could not see any future right now. That is why it's not only my sisters. I just mentioned it's like half of the population has been erased from the society completely, and they have been impacted directly with this regime. And what is very embarrassing at this point, it's the international community that they are holding the third meeting without presence of any woman. As Ms. Nadia just mentioned, that we have been, as Afghan women, we have been always the center of the problem, but not the center of the solution, unfortunately. And this is, I just would say this is a shame for human rights international laws that the UN is someone, an organization who has to implement the law, but it needs only, the laws will be implemented only on those countries that are democratic, the regimes are open to everybody, the individuals. But when it comes to the country which has been a partner for a long time for the UN, and now at this point of the time that they are leaving the girls alone, the women alone, it is, I have no words to explain the situation. And that is why I just asked the contact of you guys, if I can seek out any organization, local organization back home to connect with you, and if you could start a new initiative at school up there.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate that you joined us today, and we're glad that you found us. We definitely agree, and as I said before, feel free to, if you find someone in that region, feel free to connect them with us, and we will see what we can do, right, to extend programs in that area. We hope to soon be able to reach many more women and girls in Afghanistan, because we do know that the programs, there's not enough programs for all the women and girls that want them. And we are aware of that. So thank you all for that. So we are all here basically for the same reason, right? Because we want to find a way forward for women and girls in Afghanistan. And we all agree, and Sahar as an organization wants to publicly say that, the Taliban cannot be legitimized. They cannot be recognized by the international community, because it is a detriment to women and girls all over the world. And we don't want to see that happen. So, as far as the UN's meeting and everything that may happen as a result of that, we hope that this will not be a trend that continues as the future comes. So some people have asked about how to get involved. Just so you are all aware, one way you can get involved is by supporting organizations working to raise awareness and support girls and women in the region. You can do that by volunteering. You can also, if you wanted to join our board, you could apply to join our board. or just reach out and have a meeting with myself or Shogofa. All of that can be accomplished on our website, sahareducation.org. You can reach out to us from there and ask any questions you like, or sign up to volunteer as well. Additionally, on July 10th, Sahar Education will participate in the July Bonus Day matching event with Global Giving. This is a wonderful opportunity for every dollar donated to go even further. You can sign up for our newsletter if you're not already signed up on our website, sahareducation.org, to follow the campaign. During this one-day event, there will be matching, as you can see here, on a tiered scale. So the more that is donated per donation on that day, the more matching funds that Sahar will raise. We are attempting to raise $16,000 during this event because that is the total we need to support the next round of the Underground Text Heroes program. That will support 106 more girls. Funds for the rest of the 150 planned have already been raised, and we are looking to do that so that we can bring coding and IT classes to 150 more girls this year with that program. And so the last thing we want to say is thank you all for joining us today and engaging in meaningful dialogue. We really look forward to working together with all of you, to speaking to you again in the future in different capacities, and to a future where every Afghan girl has the opportunity to pursue her dreams through education.